right, well, I think we'll go ahead and get started, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar, where we're talking about turning financial dashboards into decisions. We are joined today by Katherine Kennedy, who's the CFO of Morrison Child and Family Services. We'll do an introduction here in a second, but it's great to have you all here. This was a very popular topic, so there's quite a few people here, and we're really excited to have you. We always like to know where you are in the world. Let us know in the chat. I know we have people here from all over the place, all across the country, and we're so happy that you're here. Oh, someone from Kentucky. Very cool. As I mentioned, I'm here in Portland, Oregon. This is a picture I took out the window from our office building where the trees looked really pretty on Saturday. Our trees are kind of peak leaves. And then if you were here early, you would have heard me say that it rained a lot this weekend. And so all of those leaves made all the trees fall down and the lights went out at my house a couple times. But it's beautiful and I'll still take it. But yeah, keep joining. If you're just joining us, hop over to the chat. Let us know where you are in the world. It's great to see everybody. Just a few housekeeping things. We're recording today's session. We'll send out the recording afterward, so no need to furiously take notes. If you have questions, please feel free to put them in the chat as we go along. We have people on who are keeping track of that, and we'll try to do our best to answer when we have a minute. And we also will send out these slides afterward. Sometimes we also create a little handout, if that makes sense. In this case, I think the slides will be the best example. So don't worry, we'll also make those slides available to y'all. So you're in the right place today if you are someone who does some work with financial things. So that could be finance, billing, collections, or if you're part of a team that intersects with those teams at your agency. I would say probably everybody at an agency has some intersection with those departments because either they help pay your paycheck, or they depend on you to document services so that they can bring in revenue for your agency. So probably everybody has some kind of relationship to that side of things. You're also in the right place if you help maintain the back end of your EHR, like Credible, and you have been thinking about how to line it up with your other systems. You're also in the right place if you're just curious about all this billing finance stuff and you just want to learn more. So we're very happy to have you here, regardless of which of those things you are. Very quickly, I'm Ginger Bandeen. I'm the founder and CEO at Mission Driven Data. I'm a social worker who became a data person, so sometimes billing and collections and finance and accounting is new stuff for me too. So I'm very grateful to have two other people on my team who are joining us today and will be here to answer questions and kind of chime in if needed while we're going through some of these reports. Andrew Sather is here, who is Director of Product Development, and Katie Berfeld is here, who is one of our solution consultants. And they were also the folks who worked a lot with Katherine on these reports. So we have them here too in the videos. And then we're joined by Katherine Kennedy, who is the CFO of Morrison Child and Family Services. Katherine's worked at Morrison since 2007 and has been CFO since 2016. She loves working with people to affect positive change in the lives of children and families throughout Oregon and Washington. She loves her work. She's super fun to work with. What else do you want to add, Katherine?
That was very nice, Ginger. Thanks. I think I'll just add that I am a total nerd, so I do love getting on calls with amazing people like Andrew and Katie and Ginger, because we get to dive into the details and figure out why things aren't working, what could make them work better for us, and how to solve questions to really get us usable tools. So yeah, definitely a geek here.
Aw, yay. Thanks, Katherine. Very, very quickly, in case you don't know why, in case you got forwarded this email and you don't know anything about Mission Driven Data, we're a company here in Portland, Oregon, and all over the country. In fact, Andrew, who's on the video, is in Philadelphia, and Katie's in Minnesota. But we offer data tools to help people who use the Credible EHR get better data out of their system. We've been expanding into more EHRs as well. So if you use something other than Credible, keep us in mind. We also have a community where we try to do events like this that are much more about how to help all of us in community services think about how we can use data more effectively. So if you're here, we're just happy you're here. We're happy to spread good practices and bring ideas to the surface. So if you haven't joined our community, there's a link in the chat. Please join us. And then we also offer consulting to help with getting some of the details set up for your agency. Okay, I always like to do a quick poll to start things off. Here we go. So it's just nice to know who you all are. So we did our introductions, but we would love to know more about who you are that are joining us today. So please let us know which of these titles describes your role. There's a whole bunch there. And if you could also let us know, have you experienced any challenges with financial reporting or like your EHR workflows? So difficulty reconciling data, doing manual workarounds, maybe having limited visibility, unclear or delayed revenue recognition, or other. Let us know in the chat. The third question we have is, which of these best describes your organization's current reporting? I think we made it so you could select more than one of these to say what you do now for reporting. And do you currently use the revenue code /GL integration in your EHR? So this one's like, doesn't matter which EHR, but do you have that set up? Do you have it completely set up, partly set up, not set up? You're not sure. So it's very helpful. Thanks everybody for answering the poll. It really helps us like think about who's here today and how we want to kind of guide our discussion. I'll give people a couple minutes because this was a lot of questions. Yeah, it's while we're doing that for one more minute here, I just wanted to reiterate that that some of the terminology is new to me too, and I'm learning it too at the same time. So no hard feelings if you're also just kind of like, I don't know. That's also a totally fine answer to these questions. So yeah. All right, well, thanks everybody for answering. As you're finishing up, I'll just kind of let our group here know. It looks like there's quite a few people here from a data and reporting role, some billing managers, some finance managers, some CFOs, administrative managers, EHR admins, and a couple clinical people and some people in other leadership roles. As far as what like challenges people have experienced, looks like the leading answer is difficulty reconciling credible data with accounting reports. Right, a runner up is manual workarounds or spreadsheets, which I think those two are probably related. And then after that, unclear or delayed revenue recognition, and then after that, limited visibility across programs or cost centers. And then there's kind of an even tie almost across people who are using built-in reports, custom dashboards, manual spreadsheets. So definitely still lots of people saying they're using manual spreadsheets for different things. And then some folks who are not pulling much data at all. And then as far as the revenue code GL integration in your EHR, some people, there's like about a third of the folks here are completely set up. And then the rest are kind of split between partially, haven't set up, not really sure. So that's kind of about what I would have expected. If you're feeling worried that you're not, that most people have everything set up with their revenue GL, we're going to talk about that. That's actually very normal. Lots of people do not have that set up. So don't feel bad. Okay, I'm going to end the poll and close that up. So just some like background thoughts as we as a group have been talking about billing and finance and behavioral health and what kind of the sticky points are with that. We've just been thinking about how billing and collections and finance and budgeting and accounting, they all sound in, especially I would say like from someone speaking as a clinical person, that sounds like money stuff and it sounds like that's all one thing. But I think what I've come to know better as I've worked with different agencies is that there are different tools used by different parts of that process. And different people in those different roles sometimes have different perspectives and need different things from their software. So EHR systems like Credible tend to be used more often by billing and collection folks who have roles related to billing and collections, whereas there's like accounting systems that are used more often by accountants and CFOs. And getting those two different systems to play nicely together can be kind of a challenge. Is there anything you would add to that thought, Katherine? Like we kind of talked about this, but did I use any terminology that you want to clarify there?
No, I think that was great, Ginger. Thanks. I think the only thing I just want to talk a little bit more about is that oftentimes I think that different systems obviously are used by different parts of teams, even if it's a holistic accounting team with medical billing fully integrated, like we have here at Morrison. Our teams are in the same office, in the same meetings, week in, week out, and yet still exist in these really siloed systems. And so it takes a lot of concerted effort to try to break down those barriers and have people talking apples to apples, because otherwise you're going to have staff that get bogged down in their own workflows, their own languages, and aren't able to then step back and try to collaborate and speak across systems. So just wanting to fully own that, like, even in more integrated workplaces like we have here at Morrison, there's still these just natural silos that are going to emerge.
Yeah. And there was a great question in the chat from Greg about what tech or reporting tools do you use? I forgot to put in here, what accounting software do you use, Katherine?
Yeah. So here at Morrison, we just moved into Credible about a year and some months. For our accounting system, we've been on Microsoft Dynamics, Great Plains, for decades. It is not the prettiest system, but it's very functional and allows us to tailor it to what we need. I think I believe almost all of us are in the nonprofit world or in the behavioral health adjacent nonprofit work. And so it's hard to find accounting systems that are tailored for nonprofit accounting. We usually have to try to put, that round peg in a square hole and utilize for-profit tools. So it's not pretty, but it gets the job done. It's Microsoft Dynamics, Great Plains.
Cool. And then for reporting, just to answer that side of that question, I think Greg would be for the reports we're showing today, we're showing them in Microsoft Power BI. So we're using Janet, which is the tool we offer to get data out of Credible, and then showing those reports in Power BI. So yeah. So kind of thinking about where there are these intersections between these different roles on the money side of things. There's the finance teams who still need stuff from our EHR systems, because you need that at least at a minimum accounts receivable kinds of information to know how much outstanding revenue is still due to come in. And then also some stuff about expected and actual revenue and adjustments. So as we've been talking as a team, a lot of times the way the data comes from out of an EHR to the finance team can be a little bit like a black box. Just give me that one report that gives me that one number, and that's what I need for my financial reporting. And part of the reason that happens is because sometimes your revenue code system isn't set up in sync within your EHR to line up with your financial side of things, especially keeping that up to date over time. And then also just billing processes take a long time, and there's other systems at play. So you might have to configure your EHR to do billing a certain way, and it might not match up with how your financial reporting works in some cases. So is there anything you would add to that, Katherine?
Thanks, Ginger. I think what I would add is, again, talking about kind of the different groups that utilize different systems. Often what I've experienced with our electronic health records over the years too, is that often your controller, your accounting manager, even CFOs are not the people that are necessarily going to be involved in the build of an EHR. And they're not going to be there at the onset looking at your chart of accounts setup, looking at your revenue matrix and your GL string setups. And so often what happens is you have information relayed through billing leads, billing managers, and they're coming at it from their perspective of how they use it, not from being that owner and originator of the data as a source. And so there just is inherent kind of workflow issues there. And so if you're in a process of a build with a new system, if you're looking for a new system, even if you have a system that you've been in there for years, if your controller is never even going to be in it ever, it's still good to talk about it with them and make sure that your revenue code matrix, your GL string, your chart of accounts are built to the fidelity of what they're going to need, because otherwise you're just wasting everybody's time and energy.
Thanks, Katherine. So now talking more about Morrison and about what you guys do there. Morrison is a large nonprofit in Oregon and some in Washington. And they're a community behavioral health agency. They provide mental health and family support services for children, youth, and families, multiple divisions across outpatient, residential, prevention. You guys moved to Credible in July 2024, right? Yeah, and previously on NetSmart Evolve. And then you guys have a big workforce. I'm curious, and I didn't plan ahead for this, Catherine, but about how many FTEs do you guys have? I'm curious.
Oh, awesome. Great question. We average just around 430, 440 full-time equivalents, but we have about 490 staff on our workforce.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah.
And maybe the group would also like to know, like, how big is your finance and billing team? Like, how
Yeah.
many folks? Yeah.
I'm really lucky. I have a team of 12 amazing staff, four of which are dedicated entirely to medical billing. We also have payroll on our team. So we have two staff that support our workforce with payroll. And then the remaining members support our accounts payable, our contract, and other non-medical billing claim creation for invoicing and that AR management. And then, of course, my amazing accounting manager and controller, who I would be lost without. So just want to sing their praises here to you all.
Nice. Thanks, Catherine. Awesome. Is there anything else you want to share generally about Morrison that we didn't touch on there?
No, just that, yeah, we're one of, there's a few core nonprofits here in town. I actually just saw Janelle pop in the chat from New Narrative. So shout out to New Narrative. They're an amazing nonprofit here in Portland as well. We've been around since 1947. We grew from a single provider doing outpatient children's mental health work to now serving over 8,000 youth and families each and every year. So we love what we do here. It's tough but rewarding work. And I think the only other thing I would add about our move into Credible is that it was a pretty big undertaking for us. Our prior product only supported our outpatient work, so doing work in our clinics, the outpatient add-on services in our residential programs. And when we started July 1st in Credible, the goal was to have it be our true source of record for all client activity. So that meant all programs, all locations, all 8,000 youth and families each and every year, using the one tool as our source of record. So it was a big undertaking. It definitely, we were still building well after July 1st as we were flying the plane. We were still tweaking and building it. But being in one tool has been a major plus for us. So we've been very happy with that decision.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you. So specifically the needs around the finance team and kind of what led you down this path that we've been on. Do you want to talk more about this one?
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so Credible, I imagine a few people in our audience are in the tool, and Credible has a lot of pluses. It has a lot of things going for it. So just starting there, because I don't want this to sound like I'm going to complain about Credible. There are some shortcomings in the system for sure, though. When you're in the system, for those that are in it or those that are thinking about demoing, it is definitely, in my opinion, it would be very interesting to hear, Ginger, maybe your opinion from the clinical side. I definitely think it was built for direct service providers. I think that is the end user in mind when they went through and they were looking at how to look at system functionality, how to have things built, which is phenomenal because none of us would be here without our amazing direct service providers. They are the ones on the ground day in, day out doing the work. On the admin and business side, though, however, there are some areas in Credible where there just is not as much sophistication as we've seen in our prior tool. And so things like the revenue matrix and how we actually assign our GL detail and our chart of accounts detail to individual transactions. There are just things that I wish Credible had thought to build differently, but I didn't get to tell them how to build it. So then we just, had to work within it. And so what we found is that a lot, basically the core principle of how Credible is built is always looking at these matching principles and saying that like you have to have really specific matching criteria to assign a revenue code, to assign an AR code, and then to look at how rates should be assigned, credentials, and things like that. And so it's great because it's very detailed and you can really get into specific things. However, then trying to pull back and ensure that you have accurate reporting on a summary level, visibility on all that detail on a summary level, and the ability to kind of manipulate the detail at a higher, more elevated level is not quite there. So there's things that you can look through the advanced search for the billing and claims, the GL advanced search, incredible, but those tools are pretty rigid. And so what we were really looking for when we reached out to Mission Driven Data was we needed help with more extensive summary reporting, as well as more sophisticated intelligence built into that reporting as well. And so that's why we reached out to you all with a couple of our pretty specific asks, almost a year ago now.
Yeah. Yeah, and I should say one of the reasons we wanted to bring this to a webinar format like this is as we started working on some of these things, we kept being in meetings and everyone would say, but I bet everybody needs something like this. I bet other people would also benefit from looking at some of this in the same way. And I think sometimes if you've used an EHR for a long time, you've just kind of settled for whatever you can get. And you've developed workarounds like spreadsheets and all that kind of stuff to make it work. And so part of what I hope people who are here today will find is that maybe there is another way to think about this and another way to have more visibility and more real-time information that's, getting refreshed all the time so that you're not surprised by things, especially in the world we're in now, which is very unpredictable in many ways. So I think that is the other thing. I think the other thing we'll touch on more as we go on, but there's also some special like I would say kind of like new forms of payment structure that Morrison's participating in that also make it even more important to keep on top of some like real-time data too. So we'll talk about that a little bit too. But yeah, cool. So anyway, Morrison and Mission Driven Data worked together to address these challenges. Our goal was to create some tools that could support both the financial and the clinical, and like these sort of bridge tools in Power BI. The process was very iterative and collaborative. We tried to use accounting logic and real world workflows. We definitely did a lot of like figuring things out behind the scenes as well in terms of like how some of the standard reports incredible work versus maybe how people might want them to work or some of the flexibility people wish they had. So that was also super helpful. So we're going to next, after this slide, we're going to show some of these reports that are really cool and helpful. Just to kind of give everyone, we thought it would be helpful for us all, including me, to have like some terminology that we talked about first. So Katherine was generous enough to offer to explain these terms to us. So go for it, Katherine.
Oh, thanks. Okay, so when we came to Mission Driven Data, we had two really core asks. One was a more sophisticated aging report that would be audit fidelity. So like that we would be able to run an aging report for a specific accounting period point in time. It's something that the Credible system does not have. I've mentioned it to them numerous times that it would be a major plus for all users of Credible. But if you go into the system right now and run an aging report, it's only ever going to tell you what is outstanding as of today, basically. It cannot be replicated back to a certain point in time based on what a closed accounting period. And that's what we need for our audit process when we have our external CPA audit each year to ensure that we're being good stewards of public funds. So that was something I didn't call out earlier. Morrison is majority funded through public funds, federal, state, local. We're actually 98.5% publicly funded. So our external CPA audit each year that is mandatory as a nonprofit is critical to us ensuring that we are being good stewards of these public funds that we are entrusted with. So the other report that we needed was for a very specific type of unique funding model we have here in Oregon, but that there's probably very similar things across the country as well. And it's a case rate where we basically get paid a fixed amount of money for a specific treatment period for an individual, for a youth. And it's for a certain length of time, and it's always the same dollar amount based on the acuity of the client. And so what we needed was an amortization report for that reimbursement methodology for those case rates, because since it's over a length of months, it's over 6 months at a time, we needed help saying, here are all of those case rates that are living incredible. Now we need to amortize it out over the future life period as we are earning it. And the reason we have to do that is because It's deferred revenue. We are getting the cash in as soon as we start treatment for that youth, but we have to actually recognize that deferred revenue over the life of the treatment episode. So for each case rate that comes in, we amortize it, we spread it over the life of the treatment episode, and the amounts for the future period are treated as deferred because the money is in, but we have not yet actually earned it. And then for us, of course, when we're talking about getting data out of Credible, getting it imported into our accounting tool, that's for our monthly financials that we present to our board of directors, that go to other stakeholders like our bank, and that then are audited on an annual basis by our external CPA firm. And they, of course, have to follow the matching principle because we're accrual accounting basis, where what we're trying to do, fiscal period over fiscal period, month in, month out, and fiscal year, we are trying to our best ability to match the revenue that was earned for that period. And then below it, the expenses that you incurred working to earn that revenue. And that's the matching principle, trying to align your revenue and your expenses over the same fiscal period. So all of those kind of come into play with these really two critical core asks that we had. We needed a revenue amortization report to be able to see how much revenue should we be recognizing each month, each fiscal period. And then we needed to be able to recreate our aging for prior historical accounting periods so that we could show our auditors, we booked this much as our bad debt liability. We wrote it off and said it's too old to collect at this time because at this point in time, 6 months ago, here's where our aging was at. And that's something Credible's not able to provide to us. So we came to mission driven data with those two critical asks and got to work with the amazing Andrew and Katie.
I was thinking when you were saying that, Catherine, that one of those things that is kind of that apples and oranges thing about some like billing and collections things and like accounting is the thing you mentioned about like closing periods. So like this idea that like things are frozen in time as of a certain date. So and I think when you think of billing and collections, things are changing all the time. And those things that are changing might be things for services from a year ago that you really, you reran your billing and realized they were going to the wrong payer, or the person came in with their new insurance card and now you can bill a payer. And so I think one of the things that gets challenging with the data matching kind of stuff is thinking about the one perspective on the world, which is things happen in a period of time and that gets closed out and locked down. And then this other perspective, which is like things are changing all the time and like we're going back in time, we're going forward in time. And so I think that is one area where probably a lot of EHR struggle with finding the right balance of tools for both things. So because technically people who are on the cloud probably thinking there is an aging as of report, but that is based on different things than the way that Catherine's thinking about it. And I'm not going to explain it well, but does anyone else want to take a stab at explaining how that's different than what Catherine's saying before we switch to the report? I'm looking at you, Andrew. I feel like you could say the words. The secret is that Andrew knows about accounting things, even though he's now our like software person.
Only just barely. I thought you were looking at Catherine.
I would say Catherine too. I was going to pick on you.
I mean, I will start. I will say, and then I will let Catherine finish because I'm sure she'll have more to add. That like the aging as of report categorizes in groups, balances based off of a hard coded like set of like the things that Credible thinks are important to hard coding group those balances in under, and that's different than how Catherine needed to group it, and we needed to figure out how we could group not just for Catherine, but actually like the underlying goal was like how can we rebuild the GL so that we can group by like anything that Catherine might ever want to group those balances by. And I don't know, Catherine, what would you add to that to make it better?
Yeah, thank you, Andrew. No, I think too what you're hitting on is the way that reporting looks at general ledger transactions incredible is not very intuitive from an accounting perspective. And so when you're looking at the advanced general ledger reporting, even if you're doing like if you're able to be in Credible BI, doing your own BI development, the way that the system handles credits and debits is counterintuitive, and it utilizes a very convoluted way of There's like even a separate flag to tell you, oh, it's a debit, but if this negative amount flag isn't checked, it actually won't treat it as a debit, it'll treat it as a credit. So just very fascinating things of like, yeah, again, I don't think an accountant helped build this. I think they realized much later they needed accountants to come in and make sure it worked. So there was all this like add-on build and stuff. So what Andrew was able to do for us was get us reports that took that very counterintuitive build and simplify it so that things like, if for people that are incredible right now, if you wanted to go and ensure that the GL, so your general ledger accounts activity on it on one claim, if you wanted to make sure the revenue was correct, any sort of adjustment was handled correct, and that your AR was cleared out, there's actually not an intuitive report to do that incredible. I've built something to kind of get me there, but like I couldn't just look at a claim and say, show me the summarized general ledger activity by account so I can make sure that it'll spit out into my accounting software good and correctly. And so what Andrew was able to do was do just that. And on one of these dashboards, you'll see that. I can literally type in a service ID and it'll now tell me all the activity, and I can verify that the GL for each service ID is accurate, because otherwise we have no idea of knowing if we have ghosts sitting in our AR that are truly just dirty data, if we have an incorrect billing matrix set up that is inadvertently adjusting off revenue that should be posting correctly. We don't know, there's just things that you would have to go down all these rabbit holes to try to solve. And if without having that intuitive canned report there, you're kind of having to cobble together some additional tools. So that's just what I would add, is like it's not really intuitive, and that's why we were done with our workarounds.
Cool. Thanks, guys. Okay, well, without further ado, I do want to start showing some reports. So this, we have redacted things, and anywhere where you do see dollar amounts, please know that we manipulated things so that it wouldn't show any actual data, all fake data, and all redacted. But to give you an idea of, this is the AR aging report that is part of our financial dashboard suite. And as you can see, you can pick the aging at the as of accounting date to date. Well, you can also customize how these buckets are set up. So like the 0 to 30, 30 to 60, that can be customized on the back end. But what's really cool about this report is you can organize it by different things. So right now it's organized. It's sort of like having a pivot table, but within Power BI. So you can, or if you see these pivot levels, you can actually choose what things are in the columns and what things are in these four different layers of the page. And I'll just go to the next, it's still the same report, but this is all the different things you can organize the data by. So how do you use this report, Katherine?
Thanks, Ginger. And actually, can you go back one real
Yep.
quick? Because there was a
Yep.
critical thing that I didn't offer up earlier about what's missing incredible. Again, another thing where it's like, oh, an accountant could have told them to do this differently. The aging report incredible doesn't actually summarize by AR receipt GL string. So you can only run it by like a program name, client, or things like that, but you can't get a summary report that looks at like cost center by cost center. And so for us, when we're looking at, again, like exporting data, importing it to our accounting software, like we did not have a way to then say, yes, we have 500,000 outstanding and 250 of it is in our one clinic with this unique cost center ID. So if you notice on the detail section of Ginger's slide, that's actually our four item GL string there. And the 3-digit number, that's our cost centers. That's our unique identifier. We build that in, we hard code that into our revenue matrix setup. And now with this report by Andrew and his brilliance, like we are able to actually recreate historical aging by unique receipt code. And that is what we need for our auditors. And it's what we need to be able to ensure that we are presenting accurate financials and showing what our actual financial health is at this point in time based on our outstanding receivables. Oh, and then I just saw one question, so I just want to name this from Tiffany. Does Morrison have the GL integration incredible active? Is this kind of reporting and BI possible without the integrate? I mean, so Andrew, I'll leave the reporting side of it to you. So yes, we have our entire GL intelligence built in on the revenue matrix so that any reporting we have spits out all of the chart of accounts detail that we need. And then Andrew was able to grab those fields in the back end and use them as filters and ways for us to summarize data in the actual dashboard.
Yeah.
To and in terms of like, can we do this kind of reporting without the integration? Certainly we can. It is important to have some level of accuracy in the revenue code matrix. If you don't, there'll still be data, but it's going to be as accurate as you might expect it to be, because what we're doing, like, it's really important to properly assign accounts to each individual transaction in your GL, and that's what the revenue code matrix does. I only mention that because the revenue code matrix is what you would set up in order to set up that GL integration. So if you don't have it, totally fine. You're going to get something, but the more accurate your revenue code matrix is, the more accurate these numbers are going to be for you.
And as I showed in that other slide, you can actually organize this report by different things, not using that revenue, that account number if you want. You could instead organize it by like program or payer type or something like that. If what you just want is a better way to look at aging and you're not as worried about those GL codes, theoretically, this report could work for that too. And I think there was also a question just generally about like, could these reports work for other agencies that use Credible? That's our plan. That's our intention, is that these reports transfer to other agencies. We expect, just having done this now with a big deep dive on this, we know every agency is set up a little differently. So I think I would expect that any agency using these would probably end up wanting us to tweak them a little bit for your purposes. But yeah, we've done a lot of the work now. We figured out a lot of the puzzle. So that translates over, which is pretty cool. Okay, anything else about aging? I was also thinking about this when you were talking about the timing thing, Catherine. Another way it helps me think about this is, like, I think agencies often that I have known or worked with, will struggle sometimes with like shocking things that happen to revenue, because sometimes it's a little bit like things are just running off of like how much money came in that month and how much money went out that month. And I think the thing you were describing, where it's a little bit like looking at how you brought this money in and what was the money you spent to bring that money in, and figuring that matching out better is kind of the difference between running like a lemonade stand based on like, how many people dropped $5 bills in your thing versus like how much money it costs, knowing if your business is doing well, but based on like literally how many checks came in the mail that day versus how many people owe you money and are likely to pay you. So I think that's the real thing that having a more accurate AR does for you, is knowing like, are we ever likely to get, like, is this real? Is this actual revenue we could ever expect to get in? And if things are getting too far outstanding, should we start not thinking of that as real money? That might be like fake money. So yeah, cool. Especially in today's world. Okay. So, anything else about aging before I move to the next page, Catherine? Did we miss anything? No. Okay. And I did see someone in the chat saying they want this dashboard. That's cool. We'll help you. So if you're kind of following along here, on the left-hand side is the list of all the different pages in our financial dashboards. And we're just going to kind of go over some of these other pages too and how Catherine is using them. We aren't going to touch on every single page because some of them are more just kind of drill through detail kind of pages. But starting back at the top now, this is the chart of accounts page. Catherine, how do you use this one? Or what does this tell you?
Yeah, so you gotta love too when you're 15 months into a system, or however long we have been, and you use a report like this to figure out your revenue code matrix does still have some errors in it. So things like this report is great because your business is going to evolve over the years. Things are going to change. And also the system is only as good as the humans that do the data entry and maintain it. And everyone is working so hard, especially in this industry, trying to help as many people as possible. We usually don't have as many resources as the for-profit world. And also, so you're going to find things. I just wanted to say that. So I found an error in our revenue code matrix on Friday. You got to love that. And I was able to, by looking at this report, figure out why I was not having certain claims get coded to the correct GL. And so I partnered with our amazing medical billing manager. We figured out it was like a 10-minute fix and things will be correct moving forward. Credible actually also has a way to reprocess, just for anyone that is a current user, is working on retooling your revenue matrix. You can reprocess claims. You can do it for open periods, and like a little tip, you can actually do it for closed periods as well. So you just have to delete your AR export and rerun everything. You don't want to do that willy-nilly, but I did want to let people know that that ability is there and credible, because things like the revenue matrix code and how you utilize it are critical to your use of the database. And so that was a great use of this report to just figure out, like, why is this GL not having any activity? It's something that should be posting hundreds of thousands of dollars over the course of the fiscal year. So that was a great thing to be able to isolate and fix pretty quickly. Incredible.
The next page is a trial balance page. How about this one, Catherine? You can see we've grayed out the numbers, but
yeah,
what
this
does
is
this one have to
again,
do?
this is again just a good double check to ensure that your revenue matrix code is functioning how you would expect it to ensure that you are booking things to the correct, however you quantify your revenue in the system.
One of the things we were talking about is some of these reports are like, if you were brand new and not doing much with that revenue code matrix yet, some of these will show you all the opportunities for improvement, because it'll show you what's missing and also give you a way to monitor it as you change things. So this next one is about ledger lines missing accounts. So is this one of the ways, and just to give some props to Catherine and her team, we as a team, we have recognized that only having $100 there is a very small amount compared to things you might see in this page.
Yeah. And so this is something that there's a canned report for. Incredible. The missing general ledger, I forget exactly what it's called. So you can maintain this in the system. Again, it's like one of my big pet peeves with that, with all the canned reporting, is that sometimes they don't always export great. And so you can't actually then do analysis on some of the exports from like the advanced GL. So with what Andrew's built here in the dashboard, it's a much more user-friendly experience.
Okay, and then journal entries. Another thing you can get, I think, from Credible, but we wanted to make one that was more user-friendly, easier to sort and filter. Am I getting that right? Is that kind of
Exactly. Yeah. This was what I was complaining about earlier when I said I just wanted to make sure the revenue was correct, the adjustments were correct, and I didn't have anything hanging in AR incorrectly. And I figured out a way to do it incredible, but it was not intuitive and it was not user-friendly. So being able to just come in here, pop in a service ID, and it'll truly show if there's any hanging balance that needs to be addressed.
Yeah, so you can't, it's not totally obvious, but this is an example where if you had selected a service ID, it would show you just, and you could even select a few service IDs. So if there were like 4 or 5 services sitting there that you wanted to see at the same time and like double check them all together, you could do that too. So that's another thing people find helpful, I think. And I would say these data explorer, my assumption is the data explorer pages are helpful in terms of like bridging that gap between like how you might be, not you specifically, Catherine, but how like the finance team might be thinking about things, and also how within Credible, the people who are more familiar with Credible might be thinking about things, and like where those, for example, either accounts receivable or revenue, this works for either one, like how the proportions are laid out in how the finance team might think about it, and also how the clinical or even billing team might think about it. So this just lets you sort of sort the data different ways, and you have the option to look at the visuals by total amounts by like programs or by payer types or by service name or even employee name, so that you can kind of like see where things connect kind of across that. Is that how you think of it, Catherine, or how would you say it?
No, that's exactly it, Ginger. I mean, I think that being data informed is one of the best ways that we can support ourselves and support our industry, because you know, for too often, nonprofits have to deal with a scarcity of resources. So we are often trying to do more with less. And so having data at our disposal and being able to make decisions to run our businesses is critical. I mean, knowing that we are going to be having to make tough decisions about staffing at a clinic or how much to invest in some new software tool. Like, we need to be able to know that the revenue that we're looking at, the aging that's outstanding, having all those numbers be accurate and timely is what's going to help inform leaders in your organization of how to run the actual business itself.
Right. It makes me think about, like, sometimes at an agency, there might be a decision like we should do more groups. Like, anyone, I feel like other people have worked somewhere where like the solution is more groups. We'll do more groups. And like, and then, but like, if there's not a connection then to, okay, are we doing more groups? And if we're doing more groups, are they actually groups, or is it really like one or two people are showing up to groups? Are the people showing up to groups people who, possibly are self-pay? And so like, if your goal with doing more groups was more revenue, like thinking about like, does that really correlate in the way you're thinking about it? And so I think some of why I think data can be helpful is it's like not got an opinion about the thing you think is good. So it can just give you kind of like, cool, more groups is cool. Here's how that's going to line up with like your financial side of things, you know? So it's a little bit more like not like a black box on that side either. I guess there's the black box, which is like finance people trying to look inside the EHR to see what's going on. But there's the black box of like, what is the thing in the EHR I'm doing that's affecting the thing going into our financials? So I really like this. And I know, Andrew, you worked on this a lot too. Is there anything else you would add, or Katie? I haven't let you talk, Katie. You're both just going to smile. Oh, go ahead, Andrew.
I mean, my insights are less interesting than yours. But the only thing I would promote about this particular visualization that I just happen to have like a preference towards building the visualizations like this. They interact with each other. So it creates like an infinite amount of ways that you can report on any given thing. So like I guess maybe speaking towards more of like the nuts and bolts aspect of what Ginger and Katherine are talking about, like this is how you can become more data informed, because there's really no waiting for anyone to add that additional dimension to the report. It's already there. Just, you click it and then you click the visualization, you see the other two visualizations change. And so it's really like it's an exponential number of reports that you can build out, an exponential number of questions you can answer for yourself about AR or revenue with just what's in front of you here.
Yeah, I have another page that I took a picture of. So here's that exact same report. But if you first were asking the question, okay, I want to see things by program and then payer and then service name. But then if your next question was, well, actually, I want to see service name and then employee, same report can do both things and even more things. So I think, and then interactive in terms of like, if I was in Power BI Live, I could click on family with client and see just the employees that show up for that. Or this could be program and I could see just the programs and then so like all the different intersections of all those different categories. Katie, is there anything you want to add to this one?
This is Andrew's baby.
Okay. I didn't mean to call on you at the wrong time. Katherine, did I miss anything?
Nope, you're good. Thanks, Ginger.
Great. Cool. Okay. And then this page is a revenue code matrix, which again, I think is kind of more on the maintenance-y side, like where are things at, just giving you visibility as you're building this stuff out and seeing how it all looks, making sure things look right. Is there anything you would add about how you use this, Katherine?
No, and it's just another way, another view. And so sometimes it always just helps to just see the data in a different way, be able to look at, filter, manipulate the data in a different way. So it's just another thing, like visibility is key. And so that's what one of the things this dashboard does, is it doesn't always give you new and different. Sometimes it just gives you like what is incredible, but in a different viewpoint. And so that can always be a plus as well.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, our next screenshot is from a different report, because as we touched on earlier, Morrison has this unique kind of way that they get paid for some types of services where they get a case rate that is kind of when everyone's out there talking about like value-based payment or like new payment models, like case rates are definitely a thing that is happening more and more out there. Some CCBHCs receive a case rate that's like a per member per month rate. But I think what's cool about this report, or how Katherine and her team and the folks at Morrison think about that is, so a client comes in, they get an assessment, they have a certain level of need, there's an authorization to provide that set of services, and it's like a payment gets sent for that set of services, but the services might happen over the course of 6 months or even a year. Is that right, Katherine? And so rather than say like, hey, there were a lot of checks in the mail today, we're doing great, all of this money counts for now, and we'll worry about paying everybody for the services they need to do later. It's like that matching idea that like, okay, we know this payment came in, but it really needs to go out and spread out across the number of months that a person would be getting services for, which was like a pretty complicated set of things. And it's definitely something that still always needs a little tweaking, because so many things can change. Like, what if someone's authorization ends earlier? What if someone like starts midway? Or what if the payment came in 2 months after the authorization? Or so many different factors. But basically making it so that you could see if you're on track to like, if the money that's coming in is going to cover the cost of the services you're providing, and also if you're providing the level of service you want to be providing for the folks that are doing that. What else would you say about that, Katherine?
Thanks, Ginger, because it is really twofold. So like what Ginger is outlining is the critical need we had to have reasonable, justifiable, and accurate financial reporting for our actual board financials. So we needed to be able to present our case rate revenue on that amortized basis so that we could say this was what we earned because we have this much still sitting in deferred for future periods. So that was absolutely critical for us. Then on the day-to-day operational side, this report, for those of us here in Oregon that are under this methodology, we are actually held to a certain benchmark by our public funder as well. And so they have a report that they hold us against, and they say, this is how we are assessing and quantifying the amount of service that you've provided against the cash that we've paid you. But we didn't have an internal report to even verify if their data was correct in the ballpark. If we're showing vastly different data on what we think based on the volume of services and the cash that were being paid for them. And so this was kind of critical on two folds. It was to make sure that we were reasonably and correctly recognizing revenue, as well as holding our public funders accountable to ensure that their data metrics were accurate as well. So we had both that administrative and that operational win by having this case rate was what our funder calls a risk corridor, making sure that we're not providing too much or providing too little based on what they're paying us.
I think that's interesting too, Katherine, because in a way that's another place where like the billing team and the finance team are overlapping, because what's getting billed out is showing up on one side and what's coming in is showing up on the other side. And the two really do need to marry up, because otherwise, or you need to know how they're marrying up in order to run the clinical side. Do we need more? Do we need to hire more staff? Because that also makes me think about like, people have often come to me and asked me about like, well, theoretically, if our treatment plans are accurate, if we never over prescribe treatments because of Medicaid fraud concerns, which I think does happen. But let's just say our treatment plans were perfectly organized to be, these are the set of services a person would need, this is how much time they're going to need these services, then theoretically, you could pull a report of all of that information and know how many staff you needed in order to meet the needs of the clients you had. Because I've worked in community behavioral health, I know there's a lot of things that make that hard to do. Like we predict we're going to be able to do something, but the person might not agree that that's what they would like to do, or vice versa. We might not have predicted that they were going to have something happen and need more help. And also there are instances, I think, where because some agencies have been burned with Medicaid audits, they just put everything on the treatment plan in case they need to bill for it because they've gotten in trouble for doing something that wasn't on the treatment plan. So because of those things, it's hard to do that. But I think that same principle applies when we're thinking about planning things out. Just so many organizations right now are trying to figure out how they're going to manage this unstable world we're now in. And, how do you predict what you're going to need in the future? How are you going to predict where you're at now? And a case rate adds another level of kind of lack. But in some ways, it's sort of stabilizing, but also like a new way of thinking about things. And I think as there's more like kind of shared risk models out there that payers want to get into, it's going to be really important for agencies to have some more sophisticated options for making sure they're not getting burned in those situations. In fact, we were at a conference in Pennsylvania a couple of years ago where the talk was actually all about how like they evaluated whether they should do an at-risk kind of model and realized there was no way to protect the agencies enough for what could go wrong with that. So anyway, I think not to scare anyone, but I just think it's important as everyone's trying to be more creative and think about different ways to meet the needs of their communities. It's really important to have good visibility and good connection between all the moving parts of your organization so that you don't have a shocking thing where you have to like borrow money to make payroll. We don't want that. We want you guys to have what you need. So is there anything, I know that got a little off topic. Is there anything you would add to that, Katherine, about this part?
I think the only, not about this report specifically, but I wanted to give a big shout out to Katie because we worked on this one for quite a while. It's a very complex report with a lot of logic built in. And I just wanted to share my appreciation of her ability to pivot because it was actually through this process, working with Katie, getting in the nuts and bolts, that we actually found out we had a misunderstanding of how the report was built by our public funder. So we've been on this funding methodology for a decade or so. And I thought I fully understood 100% exactly how the logic flowed in their report. Come to find out by trying to then replicate it with Katie that my understanding was only like 90% correct. And so I learned something through this process. Katie was able to make a report that did truly match what our public funder does. And so it was just a very fascinating process that I think we all experience this too. And just like Ginger's saying, it's so changeable right now. Everything is so just moving fast and furious that we oftentimes don't have that luxury of just sitting in data, thinking about logic and workflows and things like that. We're just getting through our day to day and putting out fires. And so being able to, again, it's like having this data, having the visibility is just one more way that we as leadership in organizations, nonprofits, can have some sort of data at our disposal and we can have tools because I don't think the work is ever going to get easier. Just like Ginger's saying, it's like it's complex, things are shifting. And so with it not getting easier, we need to get better tools so that we can work smarter. So I just want to say thanks, Katie, because this one was a beast. This one was a beast.
Well, and I was going to say that this kind of getting into this one was only possible because you all have such good detailed tracking like in your billing matrix to be able to identify like, sure, this is what spread out over time we were paid for these services, but then to be able to grab all the services and say, okay, what was the value of those services month or month and how does it match up with what we were paid? And it took a lot of back and forth. And so your teamwork in that made it possible. Otherwise, yeah, we wouldn't have figured it out.
When you're down to like looking up why there's a penny difference here and there in some of these reports, it's really fun. And when you get it to match, it's very exciting. Yeah. And I think just, again, adding into that idea of like, in this world of uncertainty, like, is it possible that having even some of these maintenance-y kind of dashboards that in some way they're sort of like ambiently monitoring things so that you don't have to remember to go run a report. You can just open up that dashboard, skim through, see if there's anything out of place. I think that's just like also something we really try to get people set up with. So, okay, I know we're getting close to out of time. I would love to ask the group some questions. And let me get the poll started here. Just a second. Here we go. Cool. Okay, don't leave because I have a really cool announcement. Please don't leave. Quick poll. We would just love to know which of these pages really got you excited. We showed you a bunch of reports today. Is there anything that really stood out to you? After today's webinar, how do you feel about setting up the accounting functionality in your EHR? And the answer to that could be, we already got it, but this was a good refresher. It could be that you have some things you want to do. Maybe you don't have a lot set up. This made it feel more possible. Maybe you see the value, but it's still a little overwhelming, something else. And then what would be more helpful? So as you know, we host live events all the time in our community. We are probably in the next, it's coming towards the end of the year and we'll probably start planning out our schedule for next year. So we're just thinking about all the different topics. that we want to be talking about. And if this is something you guys are interested in, please let us know. You're also always welcome to put things in the chat. But thanks everybody for filling out the poll. I'm going to try to do something slightly different as people are still answering the poll, because I don't want to cut that off, but I know we're running out of time. I'm just going to advance to the next slide. Just because I did want to mention a few upcoming things. One is, as always, if you want us to come and do an in-person credible user group in your state, we will. Just get in touch with us. Crystal would be the contact for us, but any of us would be excited to help you with that. Hey, this is a brand new announcement. This is hot off the press. We are partnering with the University of Maryland to do some academic research related to the impact of CCBHCs, especially crisis services. If you have any interest in that, which I hope you will, I hope you will scan this QR code and fill out the little form and let us know. We're going to be we're working with the researcher who it's officially endorsed by the National Council. We're going to be doing that. We're sponsoring all the costs related to getting your data organized, to get it to the researcher, to de-identify it, and to organize that for them. And I hope we will get lots of people. The link is also in the chat. And this isn't you committing. This is just you being cool and interested in doing research. So I hope we will get some people who are into that, because I think it's a great opportunity to make a big difference at a national level. So okay, I wanted to make sure I got to that because I didn't want to. So thanks for continuing to fill out the poll while I was doing that, guys. Just to reflect back, definitely lots of people interested in the AR aging, and also Data Explorer and all the other pages also had lots of interest. And I think this is really cool. After today's webinar, the majority of folks say they have something set up, and this gave them ideas of more they could do. So that makes us really happy. Thanks, guys. And then there are some folks who also said that they don't have a lot set up, and this expanded what seemed possible. And then some people who felt like it was a good refresher, and some people are still a little overwhelmed. So that's totally fine. Definitely people are interested in more help with reporting and more guest speakers like this, and more help with communication and building a shared vocabulary. So thanks everybody for answering the poll. Just a couple quick more housekeeping. We have our November co-working coming up. That is November 12th. Co-working is just where you can come and hang out and ask us any question you want. And if you are interested in presenting, that would be KDP on our team that you would reach out to. Just another plug for our community. Please join us, because this is where all of our cool content goes. And if you have any questions, this is my contact information and Katherine's. We're both very happy for you to connect with us on LinkedIn. We're very happy to be here today. Thanks everybody for being here. Thank you, Katherine. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Katie. We're just so honored to be working together with Morrison on these projects. And we really appreciate everyone being here today. Hope you all take care out there and enjoy the rest of Halloween week. And we'll see you soon. Okay, thanks everybody. Okay, bye.